gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's October the 18th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And today, our series evaluating the Miami Hurricanes at midseason continues, everybody, as we rank and do an analysis of the top 5 Miami Hurricanes players at the midpoint of the season. And Matt Shodell, this exercise, probably a little bit tougher than all of our listeners out there suspect, because there hasn't been a lot of great individual performances so far this year. But before we talk about the specific list, let's just briefly touch on the big picture, which of course is how the team in general has performed. And it's been, as everybody knows, very up and down.
Oh, it's my turn already?
Yes, sir, man. Getting right to you today.
Yeah, well, I mean, look.
Your fan club is waiting with bated ears for the greatness that's going to come out of your mouth today. So I figured let's get right to it a minute into the show.
Hi, Mom. Listen, I did the top 5 just based purely off who are good interviews for the media because there was nobody deserving to be in the top 5, I felt. So obviously I put Jake Garcia number 1. I have Kevin Steele as the number 2 Miami Hurricanes performer this season. And then I left 3 blank because I felt there really wasn't anyone deserving of the 3 spot. Number 4, I put the jar of pickles that are in my fridge. And then number 5, I put Mario Cristobal because he only barely made fun of me yesterday when I asked him a question, basically insinuating that no reporter could possibly have any knowledge of football before respectfully answering my question. That was my top 5. I don't know if you changed it, but that was the top 5 that I sent to you.
Well, we're making a little bit of light of it, obviously, right now. But I'm going to tell you, let me just tell you the top 5, and you're going to kind of see what we're talking about here. All right, number 1, Akeem Mesidor, no question, okay? Has been the best player on the team so far this season, having a great season at defensive end. Number 2 is the punter, Lou Hedley. How insanely ridiculous is that? Let's just, be honest. I mean, that we have to name a punter as number 2. Number 3, Tyler Van Dyke. And I think if he had played the entire season the way he's played the last 2 games, that he would have obviously been higher up on this list. I'm sure there's some of you that are saying, no way, no way Tyler's been the number 3 player so far this season, but he really has. And that's because our number 4 is Henry Parrish, who didn't even play last game. The running game has been missing in action for the past 2 weeks. And while Henry Parrish was great early in the season, he's been dinged up, has not been playing as of late, and yet we still deemed him worthy of number 4. That's because number 5 is Will Mallory, who has had a decent season so far, also has been banged up at times, has not had the greatest season as a run blocker. And then, there's really was no other candidate to unseat any of these 5 guys, Matt. And, we can joke around about it a little bit, but there is no question that if the Hurricanes are going to turn this season around, and they're 3-3 right now, and don't take this game against Duke on Saturday lightly, everyone. Duke is not what everyone perceives as a typical Duke. They've done a good job recruiting. They've got a good quarterback. They're running the football just about as well as anybody in the country. And this is a legit game, even though the Hurricanes have been installed as about touchdown favorites. Probably, because they are at home and because they are throwing the ball so well. But this is a real game this weekend. But, Matt, for the Canes to be successful in this second half of the season, they're going to need more than just these guys to step up.
It's funny you say that because I always like to talk about the time machine that I'm building downstairs. And I feel like right now I'm only building it to go to the past. But eventually I'll make one to go to the future. And I feel like if I can go to the future right now, would it shock anybody if maybe over the next 6 games and we did another top 5 just based on the final 6 games? I mean, this is how fine the line is right now on this team, where nobody is really that great. I mean, people can say Messidor, well, he had 3.5 sacks in a game. Great. Yeah, sure. But I mean, it wouldn't shock me if the next 6 games, Colby Young winds up number 1 on the next list. Frank Ladson, number 2. Leonard Taylor, number 3. Basain's number 4. Maybe even Jaleel Skinner, number 5. I mean, that's indicative of A, there's not really any top talent, and B, there's a decent amount of depth and young guys and new guys that are getting chances to emerge and are starting to emerge, which is good news if you're a Miami Hurricanes fan. But these lists are fun to talk about, right, and speculate on, but they're also a little bit revealing because there's no high first round draft pick. I mean, your punter is your second best player on the team right now. And, I would argue that maybe he was a top 2 or 3 last year. I would argue that Jose Borregales was a top 2 when he was here. It's a little scary when your kicker and your punter are 2 of your top 3 or 4 players over the last few years, because they're not really supposed to be the guys that are winning games. You're supposed to have some big time players on defense. Like, as I was going through some of these analyses, we're going to be analyses. What's the plural of analysis? It's like the plural of fish. Is it just still analysis? You don't even change it? I don't know.
I mean, analyses could be a word. I don't know.
Well, as I was doing this analysis, basically what I found is that across the board, pretty much at every position on defense, there's not one guy where you can say, okay, he really made a difference and had a game-changing play, consistently making game-changing plays. Maybe one play in a game here or there. Even Messidor, you could say, okay, well, 3.5 sacks obviously is total dominance, but a couple of them, if I remember correctly, he was sort of the quarterback was sort of pushed to him, which is great. He gets credit for the sack. But it's not like these strip, fumble, pick it up and run back a touchdown like we used to have from some of these guys. They're not really being taught, I don't think, to do that, because I think the new emphasis for this team, and you see it with the thudding that they do in practice and their tackling techniques, they're not being taught to sort of really, really go for the ball anymore when they tackle. It used to be get your helmet on the ball. That's how they used to coach it. Get your helmet on the ball, because that's the best way to create a fumble. They don't coach it that way anymore because it creates a lot of personal fouls when you lower your head and go into a guy you don't know. You might be ejected. If the guy lowers his head too, head-to-head defender gets ejected. And it's sort of strange to me that Miami's defensive players just aren't allowed to be that aggressive anymore. It sort of takes something away, because that really was the bread and butter and the hallmark of Miami defense. That's what made opponents scared.
Well, the other day they were getting penalties even when they weren't being aggressive.
You're talking about, who was it? Was it Jamal Carter? Who was the one who was kicked out of like every game? It wasn't Jamal, was it? Who was the one?
It was Amari Carter.
Right. I had the wrong Carter. Sorry.
Yeah, boy, he patented the targeting penalty, didn't he? He made to Corey Couch's blunder the other day. Child's play. But it's funny because some people thought I went over the top in my column this week when I said that Tyreke deserved to be benched for the season for that penalty. I mean, it was egregious. Did you see Mario Cristobal's comment about penalties yesterday? Look at it. You go right at it. It's a bunch of BS, right? Unacceptable. Went into the game as the least penalized team in the conference and walked out of there getting hit 17 times. That's a lack of focus, a lack of technique, fundamentals. Sometimes it's flat out laziness. Sometimes just an arrogant disregard for playing football the way it's supposed to be played. It'll be attacked directly. I love when Mario goes on these oratory tangents, man. I mean, he's so intelligent, and he's he really can spin a sentence when he wants to. And I just thought that this one was just absolute classic, Matt.
Yeah, and it's funny. He said the exact same quote when he didn't like my question to him yesterday. Said it's a bunch of BS, and all this other stuff. But
he just doesn't like you, man. He just doesn't like.
He likes me. You know how you can tell a coach likes you? It's when he's mean to you and makes fun of you. Because if a coach really doesn't like you, they're just going to pretty much ignore you, you know. And Mario and I, you know, we've talked when we've hung out at the, you know, when we've run into each other at different parts of campus and things like that. He's great. I love him. But yeah, he enjoys ribbing. He enjoys ribbing people. That's ribbing, not ripping. Ribbing. He enjoys
a lot more
people
during the off season. Because let me tell you something. You could see, honestly, the wear of the season and everything that they've been going through. You know, you.
I feel bad for Mario. I like Mario. I love Mario to death. I really do. I feel bad for him. You know, it's in a tough spot. He wants this program to be the best, and he knows it's nowhere close. And I think he was more hopeful before the first game than he is now at how quick the turnaround will be. He didn't ask me. You know, last time I ran into him, he didn't ask me, hey, Matt, you know, how long is it going to take? I would have told him. He needs to start talking to the Debbie Downers.
I think he knows.
Instead of the Gary Uppers. And, like, find out what's actually going on with the program.
He's not going to come out and publicly say, hey, everybody, it's going to take me 3-4 years to get this straightened out. But he's got to know deep down.
Why can't he do that? It would kill recruiting. Nobody would come here.
No, he's
break. Fans deserve the truth. We're the shareholders. If a company withholds information from its shareholders, they go to prison.
Because you want to know why? Because he's 6 plays and the team showing up against Middle Tennessee.
You know what? I should have mentioned this. You're
away from being, and I know it sounds totally insane. I know it sounds like excuses and all that.
No, this is the problem with your whole thing.
Listen, I apologize. Okay, I'm not trying to make excuses, but they literally are those 6 deep pass plays away and showing up against Middle Tennessee away from being undefeated right now. Like,
here's the problem.
Are any good, Matt?
Here's the problem with your one-sided bias.
It's not bias.
What if Virginia Tech didn't fumble the first series when they were driving for a touchdown and seemed unstoppable? Oh, they were 1 play away and they lost by 6. I mean, that turned into points for Miami. They lost, but you only see the good part for Miami. Virginia Tech was 1 play away, by your theory, from beating Miami, but Miami should be undefeated. Like, it's ridiculous.
Okay, I'll just declare that I'm guilty of that. Okay. I mean, I am looking at it from a one-sided.
Like, stop saying Miami should be undefeated if not for 3 or 4 plays, because the other teams also had 3 or 4 plays. They screwed up every game.
I think back to 2017, and I consider that season very similar. Like, everything just went right, and Miami won all these games that they, you know, all the close games. Like, they could have lost to FSU that year. They could have lost to, I think it was Georgia Tech that year, and they found some way to win them. In the first half of this season, they were finding ways to lose them. I mean, maybe the second half of the season that'll balance out. There'll be a close game against Florida State, and maybe Miami finds a way to win that game. And these things do tend to balance out. And Florida State, for example, got a lot of luck early in the season against LSU and against Louisville. Now they're on a 3-game losing streak. So, like, when teams aren't great, these things tend to balance themselves out over the season. And I know I am looking at it from a Miami point of view, like, darn, man, if they just, you talk to Kevin Steele and he's pretty happy with the way the defense is playing this year. Other than those 6 plays, he thinks they've been pretty good. I mean, the linebackers have been performing better than expected, which is true. Corey Flagg has been way better than anybody expected him to be. Wesley Besaint is coming fast. This was the weakness of the defense, the perceived weakness coming into the season, and a lot of it's changed now. The defensive backs just having those 6 horrific plays obviously has changed the first half of the season that we now are evaluating in this series that we're rolling out to you guys this week. But I get what Matt's saying too. You can't erase the 6 plays.
Just to be clear, if someone's listening to you that hasn't even watched a game, you make it sound like they lost 3 games by 1 or 2 points. 2 of the 3 losses were by more than 1 possession. One was by 9 points. One was by 14 points. Those are not close games in my book. That's getting beat. Like, that's not 1 play away. That's 2+ plays away, right? Because you lost by more than 1 touchdown and 2 point conversion.
But I'm looking at you just take this is how I process it. Okay, Texas A&M, Tyreke muffs the punt, hands up 7 points. Borregales misses 2 field goals. That's 13. What was the margin of victory in that game?
Which one?
Texas A&M, I think was
that was 8 points. They needed a
8
touchdown
points,
and
right?
2-point conversion that one.
Yeah, Middle Tennessee, obviously nobody shows up. You give up the 4 big pass plays. You give up the 2 turnovers. You spotted Middle Tennessee 38 points. Okay, total disaster. I mean, you can't even make it up. It was so bad. North Carolina, you give up the 2 big pass plays.
I still don't understand. You spotted them 38. They threw 3 bombs where Miami just didn't cover well. That's called like giving up points. That's not giving it away. That's a bad defense.
I call that not showing up to play, not showing up properly prepared for the opponent, and spotting them points. That's how I'm processing it.
Spotting them points normally means
I get your
turnover.
I get it. I know. I am guilty. Give me
don't understand.
Guilty. I'm just telling you how I'm processing this whole thing. And North Carolina, they gave them 2 easy scores.
North Carolina should have won. North Carolina. I agree with that.
13 points right there. 3-point game. I thought Miami was much the better team.
I agree.
But did not win the game.
Agree. 100% on North Carolina.
You're with me on that one.
They should be 4-2. I agree.
Yeah. At worst. Okay. They screwed up. They blew it.
At worst, I just said how they could have lost to Virginia Tech if they didn't get a lucky turnover.
Nah, but they controlled that game. I mean, they tried to screw it up at the end because
Let me tell you something. With this team's psyche, you're telling me if Virginia Tech rolls down the field and gets a touchdown on the first possession, that just Miami goes about its business and easily wins? Because it didn't look like that at the second half of that game. But you live in your little fantasy world in Greg Cody's basement, and like, I'll live in my house and we'll figure it out from there, man.
Cody, how did he work his way into this?
Didn't he say he used to live in his basement or something?
He said, I lived in a basement?
Yeah, he did.
I don't know. But I'll tell you this, man. Yeah, I got my cane shades on. I admit it. But I think that this could have been like 2017, a team that's not really that great, but that could have won these games. Now, like I said, these things even out, and maybe they'll get the breaks the second half of the season. But right now they are what they are.
You're that guy who invites everybody over for a big lobster feast, and then you throw like 8 crawfish on the table, and you tell people, "There's your lobster." Like it doesn't add up what you're saying. Like what you're saying you see and what actually happened is an alternate reality.
Oh, man. I'm a stone crab guy.
Here we go.
As we cut to the sidewalk outside Matt Shodell's house, where the crabs that he is getting ready to go excavate from Biscayne Bay are already protesting because they know that his buddy with the boat is going to be back in town soon, and that they are going to go out there and start hauling in these crabs. So the protests have begun outside Matt Shodell's house. But like I prefer the stone crabs over the lobster when it's stone crab season. So let's just get that straight right now. But go ahead, finish your story.
Well, I mean, it wasn't a story. I mean, it's just part of my entire life DNR, mentality, which is I don't understand people like you. I understand fans. Fans always want to
simple guy. Okay.
Fans always want to believe that
I am very vanilla.
Fans always want to believe that everything's going to be great, and I want to believe. I want to take that whatever pills you take in the morning. I don't take them. I take the reality pill, which is a bitter pill. The last 20 years, it tastes really, really bad. And but even with that said, like I can see the path forward. It's okay as a fan to say everything's not great this year, and be okay with that because it's going to get right. I mean, I know it's going to get right from what I know about these coaches. And I know that they're going to, that they're going to, I would say die trying, but that's a bad thing to say. But that's what I mean. Like they will do everything in their power, whatever it takes, to get it right. Whereas I feel like in the past, it's sort of been a country club atmosphere here. It's certainly not a country club atmosphere anymore. It's more like, I would sort of equate it probably to, the underworld, probably Hades underworld more than Satan's. Like I don't think it's like a lot of fire and brimstone stuff. But I do think it's probably like a 3-headed dog, like that's Mario. And then if you get past the 3-headed dog into the starting lineup, I know some of the players like Gaddis like yells at them a lot, and there's an edge to him too. And so like you sort of go through the tunnel to so Gaddis is like sort of like the guy who's you got to go across the river Styx. He's like the guy. I can't remember who the person who steers the boat over the river Styx. I'm sure someone will tell me. And then you finally get, you get to the underworld. And I feel like, the Greek underworld's okay. It's not that bad because mainly, they'll be talking like, I guess, Latin and Greek down there. And like, if they tell you to like start rolling stones up a hill, you could just be like, I don't speak that language, and you just stay where you are and you hang out for a while, and like everything's not that bad. So like I feel like it's more like a Hades underworld right now for Miami fans than like what it's been in the past, which is more like Satan's underworld. And I feel like we're going to escape from the underworld. We're going to sneak past Cerberus, and we're going to like come out into the light in like 2 to 4 years, and we'll be like partying, and it's going to be great. That's what I feel like is going to happen. So that's sort of how I view things right now.
All right. Well, getting back to the point. So we are doing analyses of all of these different things this week. And so today we start with the top 5 players on the team in our point of view. And yesterday we broke down the quarterback position. Today we are grading the running back position. And, we encourage everybody to take a look at that. In other stuff on the website today, we have our weekly Tyreke Stevenson blog. And Matt, this was really, really interesting this week because, well, Tyreke didn't play last week. He's been battling injuries all season. His groin's been bothering him. He's been in concussion protocol. And the decision was made late last week. I mean, originally Tyreke thought he was going to play. In fact, when we did our weekly blog with him last week, it was with the idea that he was going to play. But as the week went on, he got together with Miami's training staff, and they made a mutual decision that, let's sit out this week and let's err on the side of caution and, make sure everything's good to go. Tyreke expects to be back this weekend for Duke. But Matt, the really interesting thing, and everybody will be able to read it in the blog, was Tyreke kind of got a cool perspective in doing this week and sitting out, because he kind of got to view the game and the preparations for the game through the lens of his coach, Coach Adai, and it gave him an entirely new appreciation for what the coaches go through every week in preparing for games and trying to get the players to all do the right things. And, Tyreke is funny. It was like, one point where he talks about like, he went up to Adai and said, Coach, I get it now. Like there are times when you're just saying, well, like, what is he doing? And so it's pretty funny. Encourage everybody to make sure you take a look at this week's Tyreke Stevenson blog. I think that you'll find it at least somewhat entertaining.
Yeah, what's amazing to me, he didn't even play, and he still busted an assignment, like totally huge bust of an assignment, because I was very excited to do his blog with him at 11 a.m. Yesterday. That's when we actually sat down with him so we could do his blog. And I show up, I'm ready to roll. I always have a good time talking to him. We have a great rapport. And he's not, he's not there. And I text him, I'm like, hey, I'm here or whatever. And he's like, oh, I had to meet with my advisor or something, which I guess is a code word for him, like playing video games upstairs with his teammates. I'm guessing that's what that means, because people really need advisors. Like, what's an advisor? I don't know. Do you really need to meet with an advisor on a Monday afternoon or late Monday morning? Like, what are they going to be talking about for a half hour or 45 minutes? Nothing. So he's definitely playing video games. Whatever. It's fine, Tyreke. You blew the assignment with me. You wound up with Gary Ferman. As a matter of fact, I told him when he finally showed up, and I went up to the press conference at that point. I said, Tyreke, you blew it, man, because you could have been talking to me. Now you're talking to him. That's exactly what I said to Tyreke.
Good job pointing in the right direction.
but the sad thing was Tyreke didn't even seem very upset. He's like, okay, great. No, so man. I guess we were on different wavelengths. So I'm very upset with Tyreke Stevenson right now.
Tyreke and I are buddies. I've been covering him since high school. All right. Well, you have too, I guess. All right. So we have a few more things to talk about today. But first, let's hear from our friends at Life Wallet.
Hey sis, want to play one-on-one? What about 3-on-3? Let's do it. Wait a minute.
Life Wallet user not detected.
I knew it.
Secure your health information and privacy with LifeWallet. LifeWallet. Saving time, saving lives.
It's almost showtime for women's basketball, man. I don't know if and we're going to do a story on this eventually, but it's just amazing the impact that these two twin sisters have had on women's sports, and they are, if I guess they're not number one, but they are like in the top 3 or 4 in all women's athletes in the country in NIL deals and profile. And I mean, they've been the New York Fashion Week, and I mean, they are all over the place, these two, and they're the nicest girls in the world, and they're really, really good basketball players. In fact, Haley has been named to the Nancy Lieberman Award watch list, Matt, which is a great accomplishment for her. She averaged, I think, over 20 points a game at Fresno, I believe. These girls can shoot, man. I've seen some of their practice videos and stuff, and they are knockdown 3-point shooters. Like the Miami women's basketball is going to be a hot ticket this year, I think, when people go and watch this team and just see what's going on there. I think a lot of people are going to be going to women's basketball games this year. So, congratulations to Katie Meyer for pulling this all together. And congratulations to the Cavender twins for all that they're doing. And wish them the best of luck when they start their season. All right.
Hey, what's the save? What is it? Life Wallet, saving time, saving lives. What's their little motto?
Saving time, saving lives. Yeah.
Yeah, they need to change that. Life Wallet. Come back to life after you have a heart attack on the basketball court and go to heaven.
That's a great commercial. Come on,
Life
man.
Wallet. Get cloned into 100 versions of yourself.
The players have been obviously busy during football season, so they haven't been producing as many commercials the last couple months. I really miss them. I think those Life Wallet commercials have been creative and really good. I mean,
I was in, well, you were in them too, but I was watching as the master of the master chef teaches all these student athletes how to film a commercial. And when I tell you that he's harder on them than Mario Cristobal, like I'm not. I'm not exaggerating. It's crazy, man. He takes it very personally. He's like, you're not saying
serious about it.
You're not enunciating it enough. You're not saying it loud enough. I mean, it's like an hour for Don Chaney to say one sentence just because he was one that I saw.
He considers himself teaching these kids about the real world, and I listen. I think that they have done a great job with this NIL program. It is going to be put to a real test, though, in the month of December.
Oh yeah, that's
I'll tell you that, man.
People don't know what's coming.
December in recruiting is going to be.
People don't want to hear. The two things people don't want to hear about is NIL and roster numbers, and I don't know why not, because that's all that matters to this program. But if I start talking about it, people freak out. Why are you talking about NIL? What does that matter? Why are you talking about roster numbers? It'll all work out. Like nobody cares. Those are the two keys that will determine if this 2 to 4 year timeline of mine actually works. Those are the two only most important factors. Not wins and losses this year, not beating FSU and Clemson. Those two things, that's it. And fans don't want to hear it. Fans think I'm nuts. I'm telling you, if you come back on December, what's signing day? The Thursday, second Thursday of December. If you come back to me the second Thursday of December, you'll be saying to me, you were right about NIL. And if you come back to me next, what would it probably be? They probably have to have the roster down to 85 by next August or whatever. You'll say to me also, you were right. They had to get rid of way more people than I thought, and they couldn't sign us, or whatever it is. Like it was crazy what they had to do to get rid of the roster and get all the people they wanted to get in. I mean, those are the two things that people will say to me. I have no doubt. December whatever and August whatever, and you can save your apologies for that. All you people who don't want me to mention numbers and NIL, God forbid.
All right. So lots of other stuff on the website as well today. As we said, we spoke to the coordinators and Mario extensively yesterday. All that is still on the website. If you haven't read that yet, you could take a look at that. We have 5 takeaways from the day. We capsulized it all and bring you guys the 5 takeaways from the day. We also have Miami Hurricanes in the NFL Week 6 highlights, so you can catch up on everything that the Pro Canes are doing. We also have a story on the opening AP poll. Despite reaching the Elite 8 last year and having a solid outlook coming into the season, they think their team's going to be as good as their team last year. Very well, I'm not even going to say quietly, because Jim Larrañaga has been way more outward about the quality of this year's team than he was the quality of last year's team going into the season. But the Miami Hurricanes hoops team was not ranked in the first AP poll, Matt, and I think they're missing the boat. I think it's a lack of respect.
Who cares, man? Every year they're disrespected. Like I don't care if they're not ranked at all, as long as they make the NCAA tournament, do well in the ACC. I'm so over these basketball polls in the ACC that only like are basically chosen by Duke and North Carolina writers and people who live, in that part of the country. The AP poll is so stupid because I think I really believe the 2 guys they added in transfers, more than make up for the loss of Charlie Moore. Cam McGusty was really good, but I really think they might wind up fitting this team better because they had no big man last year. They did that well without even having a decent big man. Now they have a really good big man. I think they got a better scoring point guard now with Nigel Pack. So why they're not ranked when they reached the Elite 8 last year and one of the better teams in the ACC, I don't understand it.
Jordan Miller's going to get to showcase his skills a little bit more this year. Jordan Miller.
I'm still not sure that he should. I have to see his jump shot a little more. I know we worked on it and they think it's good, but I have to see him actually hit those shots. If he can hit those jumpers, from 15, 20 feet out consistently, then great. But I'll believe that when I see it because he didn't.
Jim Larrañaga thinks he's going to be all ACC. It'll be interesting.
Jim Larrañaga said that about who was it? Miller. Who's the Miller kid?
Miller.
The big 7-foot Miller kid. Was his name Jordan Miller also? I don't want to say it was.
No.
Rodney Miller. He said Rodney Miller. He said to us, Rodney Miller, what did he say? That Rodney Miller is going to be either the ACC comeback player of the year. He said something that just never happened. Yeah. He told us that there was somebody like Jim Larrañaga, as great a nice person as he is, which he is. I mean, he comes up to, we see him like if I was at a restaurant and he literally came up to my family to say hello, which is really nice, spend some time with us. That's the kind of guy he is. There are many other coaches who I could name who, if they saw me at a restaurant, they would just leave the restaurant, probably without even paying the bill, and just immediately get the hell out of there. And
most would.
Who?
Most. M-O-S-T.
Most, definitely. Yeah, most would.
They would see you in the restaurant and run out the front door.
But my point is, Jim's a super nice guy. And I think he's too nice to a fault to where he just thinks magically that some of his players are better than they are, sort of like how, somebody in the screen right now thinks teams are better than they are sometimes. And that's okay, but just because he's telling us one thing, like I always say with football, I'll believe it when I see it. He says Jordan Miller is going to be all ACC. I'll believe it when I see it. I know Nigel Pack is really, really good because I've seen that. I haven't seen Jordan Miller be really, really good except for the ACC tournament, who's pretty darn good. But it was going to be in a much different role than what he has to do this year. So let's see if he can do what he's supposed to do this year.
Yeah, he won't have to carry the offense because you still have Wong and Pack to do that. But he will
need to be a deep NCAA team. You need 3 scorers. You can't have 2, and he's got to be the third one, in my opinion.
Yep, no doubt about it. All right, we also have a recruiting story today on Miami commit Bobby Washington. About his brother Robbie, and Bobby. A lot of people thought he was like a throw-in in kind of like a package deal. Bobby has really been improving as a linebacker, and every game just seems to be getting better and better. And when you turn on his highlight tapes and you watch his performance in these games, you really start to see his evolution as a defensive football player. So I think Bobby Washington's got a chance to be a decent college football player, Matt. And we do an update with him today.
I'll add something to that. I remember Bobby's dad, a running back out of high school, who I covered. That's how old I am. I covered him out of high school, his dad. And the dad was just dying to be a Miami Hurricane. He committed to the Hurricanes. He was expecting to enroll at Miami. and I believe he signed with Miami. And then, that was back in the days where it was very difficult to get into Miami back then because there was a sliding scale from the NCAA. And if you weren't on it, there was a sliding scale, but at Miami, you had to get a certain SAT score, no matter what, whether you had a high GPA that would have offset a lower SAT score or not. Miami said, this is our bar for football players for your SAT score. And he didn't have it, and he couldn't get it. And he was very upset, and he wound up NC State, wherever he wound up. I don't remember.
NC State, I think it was, yeah.
But it was so aggravating back then. And that was part of the reason why, honestly, in my opinion, look, there was bad evaluations too, but part of the reason Miami just went downhill, it's a lot of, first of all, it's a lot easier to stay great when you already have been great and continue to be great. Once you start to not be so great, it's harder to get back to being great, because when you're great, players want to come to you. And at that point, they were great, and everybody wanted to come here. Everybody was going to the NFL. Everybody was having a great time. It was amazing, But part of the problem at this program at that time was that when the NCAA initiated the sliding scale, there was a ton of really, really top prospects. Miami didn't even bother to try to recruit because they were eligible on the sliding scale to go to any program in the country they wanted to go to, but the coaches knew they wouldn't get in at Miami. Now, Bobby Sr. was a local prospect from, I believe, Killian, and he wanted to come here, and he was one they tried to just hope that he'd get a late good score and be able to come in, like a Ray Lewis, a late qualifier type deal. But he wasn't. And it was just so disheartening back then, because how do you compete on what we know is this unbelievable national level of play with programs that are trying to catch Miami at that time? What Miami administration thought that it was okay to cut the legs out from under the program and take away some of the top prospects, difference makers who could have come here? And I'm not talking about Bobby Sr. He wasn't a difference maker really in college, but there was many others that couldn't come here that would have come here. I mean, it's honestly, it's unforgivable. It's something nobody ever has talked about or does talk about, because, on the surface, the PC thing is to say, well, college student athletes should be students. They shouldn't be people who really, maybe aren't good enough in the classroom to be able to get good grades at Miami. Why should they come here and fail out? That sort of thing. But you have things in place. You have tutors, apparently even advisors, whatever those people do. I mean, what's an advisor? I want to be Tyreke Stevenson's advisor. I'll tell them what to do.
I think they tell them what classes to take.
I know what an advisor does, but they don't need to meet with an advisor in the middle of a semester. That's not what they were meeting about.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't even know what. I didn't ask him.
Maybe
what do you mean with an advisor? What does that even mean? His advisor?
Life advice. Maybe he's trying to figure out how to go about establishing his advisor. He's got coaching fever now, man. He wants to be a coach now after getting that experience last week.
No, his advisor was Corey Couch playing against him in Madden. Okay, that's who his advisor was. But anyway, the point is, so that's gone now. Now Miami can take anybody. There's no more this. If they're qualified in the NCAA, they're qualified to come to Miami. No more this stupidity. But once they started the downward spiral, it's hard to get back up, and that was such a shame back then. And again, there was problems with the coaches, of course, bad evaluations. I've told the story before about how I walked into a coach's office who I refused to name, and I never will name. And he was literally looking at our list from a past network that we were a part of, just seeing who they should offer off the list. I mean, that's not how Miami ever recruited, but they were mailing it in. This was the Larry Coker era. And you could see right then, I should have just basically said, I'm going to cover a different program from now on. It's been aggravating, Gary. 20 years of aggravation. My hair would be brown. I wouldn't have wrinkles. I'd be happy. And instead, this is what you get. This is what you get, Miami Hurricanes, for not, allowing the sliding scale for like 10 years, for having your coaches recruiting, just giving offers out off lists and then trying to get kids to come off lists.
All right. We thank you guys so much for starting your day with us.
I hope nobody's watching this video, by the way.
Yeah,
it's a bad video.
It's time to let everybody go to work.
Delete the whole thing. Let's do a whole new video. This was terrible. I don't even want this video to be publicized anymore.
Check out.
I'm sorry, Tyreke. I apologize to Larry Coker staff. I'm sorry to the morons in Nashville who hate me now. I apologize to everybody. I'm sorry. I'm a terrible person.
Right, for him, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you for starting your day out with us, and we'll see you tomorrow, everybody.